In the preceding nuggets, we've done a lot of prep work to get Global Protect working. Well, now is the time for us to download a client to a PC and verify that it actually works. If we want our user on the internet, let's call it Bob. Let's call him Bob. If we want Bob to run the Global Protect client software, which includes the agent on his computer, somehow we need to get that software over there. So here's our game plan. Bob can connect initially using just SSL to a reachable address on the Palo Alto. And then we can allow Bob to download the software and actually install it on his computer. And once the client software is installed, he can then launch that client software and use that to build the SSL VPN connection for his access into the company. And that process only has to happen initially. So once Bob has the client software installed, tomorrow and the next day, whenever he wants to connect, he just launches the client software. Now, one of the challenges in this is that if we want to download that software to Bob, that implies that the client software is sitting somewhere on the Palo Alto. So we need to take an extra step on the Palo Alto and make sure that we download the version or the latest and greatest version of that Palo Alto software client on the Palo Alto firewall itself. And that's really easy to do, just like dynamic updates are really easy. It's all integrated as part of the graphical user interface. So it's really just a couple of clicks to download and activate that software so that the Palo Alto firewall can hand that out to Bob if he wants to download it. The other challenge we need to address is security policies. So if Bob out here on the internet wants to build an SSL connection initially so he can download the software client, we need to permit some traffic right here on this outside interface. And so in our security policy, it'll be from the zone outside, that's where Bob is, going to outside, which is where this IP address is. And we'll need to allow SSL. And there's also some Global Protect apps that we can add as well in the permit list. So that can allow Bob to connect, download the client, and get up and running. The second thing we need to do is allow traffic between, for example, the VPN zone and the other zones where we want Bob to be able to access. For example, between the VPN and the inside, between the VPN and the DMZ. So those would also need to be set up in security policies if we want Bob to be able to reach devices in other zones once he has the VPN established. So to get the client on the Palo Alto so it can hand it out to Bob when he asks for it, let's go to the Device tab. So up here at the top right, we'll select Device, and then over on the left, if we go down to Global Protect Client, we can click on that. And if we want to force a check right now for any more current software, we can simply click on this Check Now hyperlink down here near the bottom. So as of this recording, the latest and greatest one was from 11.13, and it is version 2.3.3. So we'll go ahead and we'll click on Download to download that software. So that is downloaded, and through the magic of editing, I had that happen a little bit faster than real time. So we'll click on Close. So if you've downloaded it and you're sure it's been downloaded, you can always click on the refresh to refresh the current page we're on to make sure we're looking at the latest and greatest information. Now that we've downloaded the software, we can go ahead and activate it, which means it can be available for Bob or some other VPN client to go ahead and download it. So we'll go ahead and click on the link for Activate to activate version 2.33 of the Global Protect client. So we'll click on Activate. Then it's asking us if we want to continue, and we'll go ahead and click on Yes, we do. So now it's downloaded and activated, meaning we can now deploy that to clients. So we'll click on Close. Next, we need to set up some security policies to allow Bob to initially connect with SSL to that outside interface. So to do that, we're going to go to the Policies tab, and on the left, we're going to select Security, and let's go ahead and create a new security rule. So we'll click on the Add link near the bottom, and we'll call this for Global Protect. And we're going to leave this as a universal rule, which implies that it's going to have an effect whether it's interzone or intrazone. We'll go ahead and say that the source zone is the outside and that the destination zone is also the outside. This is Bob on the outside hitting the IP address on the outside interface of the firewall. And the application that we want to allow is certainly not any, but what we do want to do is we want to allow things like SSL, and I'm also going to add in some PAN-OS, and then I've got PAN-OS Global Protect, and I'm also going to add in PAN-OS Web Interface. And if we were to look at the details for these objects, it would also identify what the dependencies are regarding, for example, SSL and so forth. So as we go to the tab to the right, I'll go ahead and accept those application default ports for those applications, and the action I want to specify is allow, and we'll go ahead and log at the start and at the end. Now, we are going to get some double entries that way. And in a lab environment, it does no harm really to see that information, make sure we're capturing it. And we'll click on OK. So there's our new rule. It's rule number 6. I'm going to click on that and drag it up to the top, just so it's easier to find. And the second thing we need to do is to create our interzone permissions as security rules between the VPN zone, where Bob is going to be coming in from, and other zones like the inside or like the DMZ. So let's create a new rule for that as well. So we'll click on Add. This is going to be an interzone policy. So we'll select interzone, and we'll give it a name of VPN users. And we'll say the source is going to be the source zone of VPN, and the destination zone is going to be the zone of inside. Let's also add the DMZ. And now that I think about it, life is, pretty much a two-way street. So if we have the DMZ zone and the inside zone and the VPN zone, and we're allowing access with this rule right here from VPN to DMZ and VPN to inside, if we wanted the DMZ or the inside to initiate connections to our VPN clients, we'd also go ahead and set up permissions in the other direction as well. So in our lab environment, let's actually modify that a little bit. Let's go back to source and let's specify VPN and inside and DMZ. And for the destination, we'll also do the same 3. So it'll be between inside, DMZ, and VPN. And that way, if we have a need to or a desire to, we could initiate flows for any allowed applications on either side of those zones. And then for the application, we could be very granular on what we want to allow. For this demo, I'm going to go ahead and say any. And then for the actions, we want to go ahead and allow that traffic. So we're pretty much in this demonstration giving unfettered access for a VPN client to pretty much any other resource in the DMZ or on the inside, and vice versa. And we'll log both at the session start and at the session end, and then we'll click on OK. And then we'll commit this and confirm that commit to apply it to the running config. So now we get to attempt to connect. So from a computer that's sitting on the outside network, the 192.168.1 subnet, let's open up a browser to https://192.168.1.250, just like a client would before they initially have the Global Protect client installed. So we'll press enter. So what's happening here is my browser does not trust the certificate because I used a certificate authority from a Microsoft CA that wasn't part of PKI, and as a result saying, hey, this may be dangerous. So I'm going to go ahead and click on advanced and click on proceed to 192.168.1.250. And now we're connected to the Palo Alto gateway via the portal. So I'm going to log on as Bob. Bob has an account in Active Directory, which we're using on the back end for authentication. We'll put in Bob's password and press enter. Now it's giving us the option to download the Global Protect agent, which effectively is the client software that we can then run on our computer. So currently I'm running a 64-bit version of Windows, and as a result, I would go ahead and click on this link to download that software and install it. A user who has full access and administrator rights on their local computer could go ahead and install the software once they've downloaded it. So to save us a few moments, I've already downloaded that version of the software. I've installed it on this computer, and let me bring in the interface. So here's the Global Protect. If we click on File, because we set it up for manual mode, and click on Connect, it's now asking me for the portal I want to connect to, which is 192.168.1.250. The username is Bob, and we'll put in the password for Bob as well. And with that implemented, we'll click on Apply. And it says we are now connected. Now, what that means is that we should have a virtual IP address assigned to us of 10.3.3. And whatever the starting range was for the range, I think it was 51. So it will have assigned us an IP address. And if we connect to any devices, for example, on the inside zone or on the DMZ, they will see us as coming from that 10.3.3 address. So to test this, here's what I propose we do. We've got this server 1 here on the DMZ. In an earlier nugget, we used the Cisco router and we configured web services on it to make it work and respond like a web server. And what we can do is we can spin that bad boy up one more time and also enable telnet access to it. And then from this computer, which is Bob's home computer we're imagining, and Bob now has a VPN into the Palo Alto, if Bob was to go ahead and launch telnet, for example, or SSH or HTTP or anything else and connect to the IP address of 10.2.2.1, which is this server, if we looked at the details on that server, the server would say, oh, this client is connecting from 10.3.3. I think the starting address was .51. So we'll do a couple of things. Let's just re-enable this server for a moment. We'll also verify our IP address on Bob's computer regarding his virtual connection through the VPN to this network. And then we'll test with Telnet just to verify that Bob can connect to that server. So we'll bring up GNS3 and we'll open a project, and web server is a project we want to open up. So we'll open that project. We'll click on the Go button to start it. And now router 1 here is up and running, or is in the process of it. We'll right click and click on console, and router 1 is representing our web server in the lab. So we do a show IP interface brief on this Cisco router. It's got the IP address of 10.2.2.1, and it also has a default gateway that points to the Palo Alto firewall at 10.2.2.250. Also, while we're here, I just want to enable Telnet so that we can try to Telnet to this device, and it won't be the Cisco router saying no. So we're going to go into configuration mode on the Cisco router. We'll go into line configuration for VTY lines 0 through 4, which is the first 5 VTY lines, and I'm going to say no login. which is a bad idea for security, but no login effectively says no login is required. Bring your tired, your weary, your Telnet sessions, and I'll let them in. So we'll go ahead and I'll save that. So with that in place, let's do an IP config. This is from my computer that's sitting on the outside on the 192.168.1 network that we're using with the Global Protect client. We'll do IP config. We'll scroll up just a little bit. I just want to verify the IP addresses involved. So on the Ethernet adapter that I have the IP address of 192.168.1.130, and on this adapter right here, which is my logical VPN connection, I have the IP address of 10.3.3.51 from an IPv4 perspective. I've also got a link local address of FE80 yada 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 yada. So if we were to launch from this PC, the one on the outside of the firewall that currently has the Global Protect VPN in place, if we were to launch a Telnet session over to 10.2.2.1, which is our DMZ server, it should not only work because of the security policy that's allowing that initial flow of traffic, but we should also, from the DMZ server's perspective, think that request is coming in from 10.3.3.51. So let's test that. I've got a terminal emulation program. It's called Secure CRT, and let's initiate a new connection. So we'll use Telnet, and we'll go to 10.2.2.1, which is the IP address of our server on that DMZ being played by the router, and we'll press enter. And sure enough, we are connected. And if we typed in who, this DMZ device would tell us, okay, connected on VTY line 0, coming in from 10.3.3.51, I've got a management connection to that device. So that's just one additional step that we could take to verify that not only did we establish a VPN connection with Global Protect, but we are actually able to communicate and interact with devices on those networks and zones that we've configured to be allowed inside of our policy. I also just took the liberty of going to the App Store on my iPhone, and I downloaded the Global Protect software. It took just a few seconds. I then launched it. It asked me for the gateway IP address. It asked me to authenticate. I authenticated as Bob, and it connected me. It was awesome. And then when I clicked on details, it showed me the gateway I was connected to, the IP address I'd been assigned, 10.3.3.52, the gateway address, the protocol, and also some of the initial traffic stats. So I just added a little application. I downloaded it from the App Store on the iPhone, a little Telnet application, and also connected over to our DMZ server just to verify the connectivity works. And if we wanted to see some of that activity from the Palo Alto firewall interface, we could go to monitor, and then over here we could go down to session browser on the left. And here you'll see we have the 10.3.3.51. That was from the PC with the Global Protect client, and this 10.3.3.52 is from the Apple iOS phone with the Global Protect application running on it. And they're both connected to 10.2.2.1 to the well-known port of 23, which the firewall recognized as the Telnet application. And if we expand this column for the rule of VPN users was allowing that interzone traffic. We could also expand these, for example, so we could take this first entry here and expand it. This is between the iOS phone and the DMZ server. And here it also shows the security rule in place, the protocol. Protocol number 6 is TCP. That'd be the layer 4 protocol. The application is Telnet. The initial flow was from 10.3.3.52 from the iOS phone over to 10.2.2.1. The user was identified as Bob. And flow 2 is the reply session, going from our DMZ resource back to the VPN client. So in this nugget, we made sure that the Global Protect client software was available on the Palo Alto to be downloaded to clients. And then we verified that we could download and use that software from a PC We also verified that the Apple iPhone with the Global Protect app could also get VPN access, and we also verified that that worked as well. So I'm glad you joined me for this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.